Welcome to Home-brew. I'm Tom Brennan. Today's episode has to do about a session New England IPA that I made. Right now we're about 20 days out from when I had first started to get things moving along. It's nice and fresh, it's nice and tasty. It is low ABV, or should I say low ABV. I'll tell you more about that after the ska. So the idea that I had behind making this session New England IPA, I actually had a New England IPA at a homebrew club. This guy made it was tremendous beer. He said he used a pound of hops in the recipe. I didn't quite use a pound of hops in this one, but I did also want to make a session beer as well. So I decided to make it a lower ABV. I think I was shooting for originally like 4.5% ABV, and you'll see throughout the video how I managed to make this beer with about an ABV of 3.6. Yeah, so I screwed up my water. That's pretty much what it came down to. I'll show you how I started a yeast starter. This is actually with Irish ale yeast that I had laying around. Got the starter in the first part of the video, then we go to brew day, and then dry hop day, and then keg day. And then we're going to come back here to do a little bit of a roundup. So I guess if you're watching this, everything turned out to be a success. This is Thursday before brew. I've got going for me, ready for this, quick camera move, a yeast starter going. I'm actually going to be using some used Irish ale yeast. I've got going here WLP 004. I have going on in the oven some oats. Those are 2 pounds of oats, one for each half a sheet cake. I've actually just used Quaker old-fashioned oats as we start on our little experiment. I'm going to be toasting the oats for about 15 minutes. Going to take them out of the oven, stir them up a little bit, put them back in for another 15. And by that time, hopefully my yeast starter should be done. I've shown you guys how to do yeast starters before, so you'll be able to quick look at a link somewhere I'll put in the video on how I make yeast starters. Brew day has arrived, and I'm actually going to read off some notes here. I'm trying to make a session New England IPA because I'm making session beers throughout the entire year. So here is my malt bill that I've got so far, and I am reading from notes. I've got 60% Maris Otter, 20% flaked oats, which actually I just use regular oatmeal. You saw me make that a little while ago. 10% Munich malt and 10% table sugar, only because I had it laying around and I wanted to kind of make sure I got my gravities best I could, because making these session beers are a little difficult because a lot of times I've actually overshot it. And by now I probably have a blog post about that, the first beer that I made at hypobrew.com. Looking at an estimated starting gravity of 1044. I'm going to be doing a couple things differently this time around. I'm eyeing up my water here. I'm going to actually mash hotter than normal. I'm going to mash it about 154, 156. I'm going to do it for a half hour. Normally I mash for a whole hour. And then I'm going to boil for a half hour as well. Again, shortening up the brew day just to kind of see how those things work. And it'll work with this, I believe, because I've heard mashing at higher temperatures for New England IPA is recommended for the mouthfeel. Also, I've actually seen some experiments where people have boiled for a half hour using all green as well. I'm just eyeing up my strike temperature here. I may have to shut it off in a second or two. So I'm gonna try doing that. And besides, I'm not adding any hops in the beginning of the boil. It's all gonna be in whirlpool. So we'll see what happens. Yes, and I'm actually gonna explain to you in a few minutes the hops that I put in there as well. So I'm at right about strike temperature. So I gotta go. See you in a bit. I'm mashing in right now. I got about the right temperature, so I'm satisfied with that. Yeah, sometimes I'm very precise with things, sometimes I'm not. This is kind of one of those days I just kind of feel like being a little lazy. So it's not exactly at the right temperature, but I'm okay with that. All right, now, it's quiet. Got the grain going in the brew in the bag. I want to talk a little bit about the hops that I've got going on. For a couple different reasons, I've chosen to use whole hops in this recipe. Because I'm using whole hops, I need to adjust the water volume for how much water how much wort, I should say, that these hops are going to soak up. So I had to make an adjustment for the water volume that way. Also because it's a 30-minute boil. So, are you ready for the hops?
This is I could smell them from here, and I'm standing up, and this is on a table. You ready for this? So there's the hops that I'm using for today. Take a whiff. Take a whiff. Yeah, I know. You can smell it through the screen. That new YouTube thing about smell vision, it's coming soon, so that's why I'm preparing. In here, what I'm going to be doing at Whirlpool, I'm going to do a hop stand, whirlpooling it for probably about 20 minutes. I've got 3 ounces of Simcoe in here. I've got 3 ounces of Amarillo and 2 ounces of Mosaic. And at some point in time, I'm going to be dry hopping with Mosaic. I don't have it right here in front of me how much I'm going to be dry hopping. However, I actually have pellets I'm going to be dry hopping with because I'm putting it in the keg. So that is a massive amount of hops for me, at least. I'm not really a big bitter IPA guy. I mean, I do make my decent IPAs, and I like them, and I like to drink them and all that. But this is because it's so late in the boil, and you want to get that, I hate to say it, that juicy feel to the beer. That's why I'm using so many hops, and I'm not using any bittering hops at all. That's right, no bittering hops at all. This is all going to go in once I get below the 180 mark, and I'm going to whirlpool them with a hop stand for about 20 minutes or so. And I also, actually forgot to mention, because I'm a little afraid, I'm actually definitely afraid of what these hops are going to be doing to my kettle. I actually have this bag, which I'm hopefully will fit all these hops in there, and I'm going to stick this in right at Whirlpool. And if this is not big enough, I'm going to have to use my brew in the bag. I never thought I'd have to use a brew in the bag for all these hops. I've only got a half hour to go because I got my mash in. Actually, it's more like 20 minutes now, so I'll catch you back in a little bit. Since this is a half-hour boil, what I've decided to do already is to put my immersion wort chiller in. Here's what the wort looks like. I noticed when I was taking the bag out, the bag was especially sticky. Probably because of all the oats. I also have my pump going to sterilize my wort with my Whirlpool ports here, and I'm just about to get it to a boil, and then I will start my timer. Right at Whirlpool stage, tossed in my hops. One thing I want to let you know is to be mindful of how quickly your wort chills. I actually chilled the wort down to 160. I look over, I realized I was too low, so I had to turn the burner back on because my wort chiller works so well and so quickly. In like 3 minutes, it went down to 160. So what I did notice, aside from that, to take note, I also noticed that my oats, the flaked oats I calculated in Beersmith, what happened was that I'm pretty sure that the starch, the enzymes that came out of the Quaker oats that I used was a lot lower than I had anticipated because my pre-boil gravity was way lower than I had anticipated that I calculated in. So I actually had to add an additional pound of sugar, which I know it's crazy, but I think it's going to be so thick, you're probably going to be able to not detect that sugar. That'll just be between us, that little secret that I put 2 pounds of sugar in a New England IPA. So that boosted the gravity up when I was checking right before I killed the flame. It was 1040. So, maybe we'll see what happens. I'll take another gravity reading once everything cools down. I got everything into my fermenter. And so now I've got about another 8 minutes or so left in the 20-minute whirlpool that I've got going on with those 8 ounces of hops. I will freely admit when I've made a mistake, and today it appears I've made a mistake. In this case, it has to do with water volume. So, what I actually did was pull off 6 gallons of wort into my fermenter. I was anticipating about 5.5, but it looks like I've got 6. And on top of that, I have about a gallon or so left of wort in my kettle, and that is after I pulled the hop bag out. So when I was doing my calculations for how much wort the hops would soak up, I was actually smart this time, and I weighed the hops with the hop bag before and then after it was in the wort. So now that it is out of the wort, I've made a calculation here. It's about 5 pounds total. So I'll figure out the math, divide how many ounces of hops. The one thing I can do, I was originally going to dry hop in the keg, which when you dry hop in the keg, you lose some volume there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to dry hop right in my primary, so this way I could lose the volume in the primary, and then my finished product I'll have already in the keg, ready to go. I won't have to worry about dry hopping. So there you have it. As a matter of fact, rather than using pellets, I may use some whole leaf hops to kind of help absorb that and save the pellets for another day. Alright, here we have a first look at the beer. I'm dry hopping today with 4 ounces of Amarillo and 2 ounces of Mosaic. Just pulled some of this off the fermenter, and I reached a gravity of 1012, which would get me at about 3.6%, which is okay. I mean, certainly a sessionable beer, and that's what I was aiming for. But because the water volume is so high, I mean, I opened up the fermenter, and it was just like the beer was right there at me, which is fine because all that dry hopping with the whole leaf hops will hopefully get it down a little bit, and if I can fit into my keg. Aroma, I smell a little bit of juicy fruit going on in here, and it certainly smelled like that when I was in the whirlpool stage of things. I've let my wife take a whiff of it as well, and she said it smelled like pineapple-y citrus, which I guess would be kind of like juicy fruit would be like. The taste reminds me of juicy fruit after you took about 5 or 6 chews. The initial burst of juicy fruit, then right after that. That's what it reminds me of. I really wasn't aiming to shoot for something like this, juicy fruit kind of thing. But hey, it worked out that way, so there you have it. Keg day has occurred. Packaging day, actually, I should call it, because I had some extra left over. When I took off the lid off the fermenter, crazy floral bouquet from the 4 ounces of Emerald, 2 ounces of Mosaic I had in there. The hop bag was just spread out all over the place. I probably should have used a different bag. I think I had just some hops that didn't make contact with the beer, but I'm okay with that. I really am. Now, I did notice when I took out the hop bag that it did take away some beer, which is okay, because I only had a 5-gallon corny that I filled up almost to the top, minus a couple of inches for the gas tube there, the input tube. I did also manage to bottle 5 bottles of Grolsch style bottles. I had those little carb tabs that I put in there, so we had a week and see what happens with that. Because of the extra wort manufacturer water when I started out with. This is the lesson, kids. Double check and make sure all your water is cool before you start doing things. Not cool in the sense of temperature-wise, of course, but make sure everything's all straight, because otherwise you're going to affect your gravity. In my case, because I'm going a year trying to do some session beer, a lot of session beers, I'm okay with this goof. So, started out at 1040, got down to 1012. It gives me about a 3.7% chance of me actually finishing this video without messing up. 3.7% alcohol by volume. That's how you say it. So that's where I'm at right now. I'm just real quick. I'm going to show you. First, let me take a whiff. I'm not getting a whole lot of aroma off of the beer. This was just what I pulled off when I took my sample to take my gravity, but still that juicy fruit kind of thing going on. Dry hopping did affect the flavor for sure. Getting a little vegetable in there, that's from the whole leaf hops, and a little bit of bitterness. So, despite all the rumors out there of these 0 IBU IPAs, New England IPAs, I'm sorry, you get bitterness. That's the way it is, at least in my book. So we can check back in after about 2 days. I'm force carbing the beer right now, and I'll let you know, or in a few seconds, you will find out how it all turned out, and some final thoughts, too. So that about wraps it up. I want to tell you a little bit about the beer itself. The aroma is nice. It's subtle. A little bit of stone fruit maybe in there. I'm pulling off some citrus. That's probably from the Amarillo. The stone fruit probably from the Mosaic. The taste is pretty much like what it tasted. Actually, it tasted brighter than I had it when I had kegged it. I was describing it earlier in the video as juicy fruit. But yeah, juicy fruit is definitely there, but it's brighter because of the carbonation. I actually had one of my fellow homebrewers. I brought this to a homebrew club meeting. He mentioned how this is crushable. I mean, this really is the lowest ABV beer I've ever made, and I think it turned out pretty well. I mean, I could have 7 of these in a day and not feel any bit tipsy. I could actually drink this on a brew day. So if you're looking for a sessionable beer, if you've got tons of hops lying around like I did that go well together, I suggest you try. And when you have a chance, subscribe to this channel on YouTube. Got a whole bunch of videos that I have planned going on for the next couple of months. And if you have any suggestions for videos, feel free to drop me a line, make a comment in the section below. and I will talk to you real soon. Until next time, guys, cheers.